Ave Carter stared at the damage she had just caused to a $9 million Bugatti. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't afford the repair. She couldn't afford the lawsuit she was certain was coming either. Then the owner stepped toward her. Damian Weston, a powerful mafia boss whose presence alone made Ave realize she had crashed into the wrong man's car. She expected shouting, a demand for money, maybe something worse. Instead, Damian looked directly at her face and went completely still. Ave didn't understand why. "You can't pay for this car," he finally said. She swallowed. "No." "Then you'll work for me." Ave stared at him. Doing what? Damian's answer made her wonder if she'd heard him correctly. "You'll become my domestic assistant." Ave thought he was punishing her for damaging his Bugatti. She was wrong, because the car wasn't the real reason Damian wanted her inside his estate. There was something about Ave Carter he wasn't telling her, something that had begun 8 years earlier. And when Ave eventually discovered why Damian had really kept her close, she would realize their meeting that day wasn't the beginning of their story at all. 8 years earlier, Ave Carter had encountered an injured stranger at a cemetery. She didn't know his name. She didn't know what kind of life he lived. She only knew he needed help. So she helped him. Ave never considered what she did extraordinary. Once the man was safe, she left and returned to her own life. She never expected to see him again. But the injured stranger was Damian Weston. And while Ave eventually forgot the encounter, Damian never forgot the woman who had stopped for him. For 8 years, he searched for her. He never found her, until Atlanta brought her directly into his path again. And this time, she arrived by crashing into his car. The impact happened so quickly that Ave barely understood what had gone wrong. One moment she was driving. The next came the unmistakable sound of metal striking metal. Ave slammed on the brakes. Her car stopped. For several seconds, she remained behind the wheel. Then she looked ahead. Oh no, she had hit another vehicle. Ave climbed out immediately. Her first instinct was to check the damage. Her second was to wonder why the car she had hit looked more expensive than anything she had ever stood beside. Then she saw the Bugatti. Her stomach tightened. Damage marked the luxury vehicle. Ave slowly looked toward her own car, then back at the Bugatti. Maybe insurance would handle it. That thought lasted until she noticed a man approaching. He was tall, controlled, and sharply dressed. There was something intimidating about the calmness in his expression. Ave stepped forward. "Is this your car?" The man's eyes landed on her. He stopped. Ave waited for an answer. Nothing came. "Sir," Damian Weston barely heard her. He knew that face. 8 years had passed, but he knew it. The cemetery, the woman who had found him injured, the stranger who had helped him without asking what she would receive in return. The woman he had spent years trying to locate was standing directly in front of him, and she clearly didn't recognize him. Ave glanced at the damaged Bugatti. "I'm really sorry. It was an accident." Damian remained silent for another moment. Then his expression settled. "How are you going to pay for it?" Ave blinked. "I have insurance." "That won't cover this." "You don't know my insurance." Damian looked toward her car, then back at her. Ave followed his gaze. "All right," she admitted. That wasn't convincing. She approached the Bugatti carefully. "How expensive are we talking?" $9 million. Ave stopped. She turned slowly. "Excuse me. The car is worth $9 million. $9 million? Yes." Ave looked at the vehicle as though it had personally betrayed her. She had known it was expensive. She hadn't known she had just crashed into something worth more money than she could imagine possessing. "But I'm not buying the whole car," she said quickly. "It's damaged. So how much is the repair?" Damian watched her. "More than you can afford." Ave didn't like how certain he sounded, but she couldn't argue. She stared at the damage again. Her mind raced through insurance, savings, and every possible solution. None of them came close. What happens if I can't pay? Damian could have answered immediately. Instead, he studied her. 8 years searching, and now Ave was standing before him because of a damaged Bugatti. She didn't remember him. Damian decided not to tell her. Not yet. You'll work for me. Ave frowned. Oh, what? You heard me. You want me to work for you because I damaged your car? You owe me for the damage. And working for you somehow fixes a Bugatti. It settles your obligation. Ave stared at him suspiciously. What exactly do you mean by work? Domestic assistant. Her mouth opened slightly. You want me to become your maid? Domestic assistant. That's a nicer way of saying it. Damian didn't respond. Ave folded her arms. You don't even know me. Damian's expression changed almost imperceptibly. He knew more about their history than she realized. But Avenue couldn't know that yet. She looked at the Bugatti again. The situation was ridiculous. She had woken up that morning with an ordinary life. Now she owed a stranger for damaging a $9 million car, and he was offering her a way out that involved working inside his home. How long would I have to do this? Until the obligation is settled. That could mean anything. You'll know the terms. Ave studied him. And if I refuse, then we deal with the damage normally. Ave already knew what that meant. Insurance, lawyers, a financial nightmare. She had no realistic way of surviving. She exhaled slowly. This is insane. Damian said nothing. Ave looked at him again. Something about the man unsettled her. Not because he had threatened her. He hadn't. It was the way he kept watching her. As though the accident wasn't the most surprising thing that had happened to him that day. Ave finally nodded. Fine. Damian waited. I'll work for you. The decision was made. Soon afterward, Ave arrived at Damian's estate. Only then did she begin to understand how wealthy the man whose car she had damaged truly was. The estate was enormous. Everything about Damian's world felt removed from her own. But Avenue reminded herself why she was there. She had a debt. She would work. She would settle it. Then she would leave. Simple. At least, that was what she believed. Damian watched her enter the estate. 8 years earlier, Ave Carter had walked away from him without asking for money, recognition, or repayment. He had spent years searching for her afterward. Now she was finally standing inside his home. Ave believed a $9 million Bugatti had brought her there. Damian knew better. The accident had only brought back the woman he had never been able to forget. And Avenue still had no idea who he really was to her. Life inside Damian Weston's estate was nothing like Ave Carter expected. She entered with one goal: work off the debt, leave. She learned her responsibilities and treated the arrangement seriously. But something about Damian bothered her. Sometimes Avenue would enter a room and catch him watching her. Not with anger over the Bugatti, with recognition. Finally, she confronted him. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Damian remained calm. Like what? Like you're waiting for me to remember something. He said nothing. Ave caught the hesitation. Have we met before? Damian looked directly at her. Yes. Ave froze. When? 8 years ago. She searched his face, but nothing came immediately. Where? At a cemetery. The memory returned. An injured stranger. A man she had stopped to help before continuing with her life. Ave stared at Damian. That was you. Yes. You remembered me? I never forgot you. Ave struggled to connect the powerful man standing before her with the injured stranger from that day. Then why didn't you tell me when I hit your car? Because you didn't recognize me. That doesn't explain why you made me work here. Damian knew she deserved the truth. I wanted you close. Ave's expression hardened. You made me your domestic assistant because you wanted me close? I've been looking for you. For how long? Since the cemetery. Ave stared at him. You spent 8 years searching for me. Yes. Why? Because you saved my life. Ave shook her head. You don't owe me for helping you. That wasn't how I saw it. She turned away for a moment. Suddenly, The things she hadn't understood began fitting together. His reaction when he first saw her, the way he watched her, the strange feeling that the damaged Bugatti wasn't the whole reason she had been brought into his estate. "You should have told me." "I should have." Ave looked back at him. "You let me believe I was here because I owed you." Damian's voice softened. "The truth is, I always believed I owed you." The revelation changed something between them. Ave was no longer looking only at the intimidating man whose car she had damaged. She could see the stranger from the cemetery, and Damian no longer had to hide why her presence mattered to him. Their conversations became easier. Ave began seeing beyond his wealth, reputation, and controlled exterior. Damian discovered that the compassion he remembered wasn't something Ave had left behind 8 years ago. It was simply part of who she was. The distance between them gradually disappeared. What began with an impossible debt became something neither had expected. Their connection deepened, and eventually it became romantic. But getting closer to Damian also brought Ave closer to the complications surrounding his life. One of them came from his past, his former fiancée. Her powerful family still held significant influence around Damian's business. The engagement might have ended, but their connection to his professional life had not. Ave soon understood that Damian's relationship with her would only increase the pressure. She refused to become another obligation. "You don't have to fight anyone because of me. This isn't only about you." "Then what is it about?" Damian looked at her. "My future." For years, his former fiancée's family had maintained influence over parts of his business. Now Damian wanted that influence gone. Not through threats, not through violence, through legitimate restructuring. Ave didn't ask him to choose between her and them. She didn't need to. Damian had already decided that his past would no longer control his future. He began restructuring his business, separating it from the influence his former fiancée's family had maintained. It was a decision that would eventually become public, and the moment was approaching. A grand charity gala would bring together some of the city's most influential people. Damian would attend. His former fiancée's family would be there. An avenue would be beside him. Ave believed they were simply attending another important event. Damian knew otherwise, because before that night ended, he intended to make two things unmistakably clear. His business no longer belonged under anyone else's influence. And Ave Carter was no longer the woman working in his estate because she had damaged his Bugatti. She was the woman he had chosen for his future. The charity gala arrived with Atlanta's most influential people gathered beneath one roof. Ave Carter entered beside Damian Weston. She knew the evening mattered. She didn't know how much. Damian had spent weeks completing the legitimate restructuring of his business, separating it from the influence his former fiancée's family had maintained. Tonight, that decision would become public. Ave noticed the attention almost immediately. People watched Damian. Others watched her. And across the ballroom stood members of his former fiancée's powerful family. Their presence changed the atmosphere. Ave glanced at Damian. He remained completely composed. "You knew they would be here." "Yes." "And you still brought me?" Damian looked at her. "I didn't bring you here to hide you." Ave held his gaze. She understood what he meant. Their relationship was no longer something Damian intended to treat like a secret. But Avenue didn't want the evening to become a public battle over her. "This isn't about proving anything because of me." "It isn't." "Then why tonight?" "Because the restructuring is complete." Damian had made his decision through legitimate business channels. There was nothing left to negotiate. When the appropriate moment came, attention shifted toward him. Damian addressed the room. He announced that his business had been restructured and that the previous influence surrounding it had ended. The statement was controlled, professional, final. Across the ballroom, his former fiancée's family listened. There was no public argument, no dramatic threat. There didn't need to be. The decision had already been made. Damian had separated his business from their control. Whatever influence they once possessed over his future was gone. Ave watched him from nearby. For the first time, she fully understood what Damian meant when he told her this wasn't simply about their relationship. He was reclaiming control of his own life. When Damian finished, conversations spread through the ballroom. Ave expected him to return to her. Instead, He remained where he was. Then he looked directly at her. Something in his expression made Ave stop. Damian began walking toward her. The room gradually quieted again. Ave frowned. Damian, he stopped in front of her. 8 years earlier, they had met in a cemetery. Ave had seen an injured stranger and helped him without knowing his name, wealth, or power. Then she had walked away. Years later, she had crashed into his $9 million Bugatti without realizing she had just collided with the same man's life for a second time. She thought the accident had created a debt. She thought becoming his domestic assistant was simply the price she had to pay. But the truth had been the opposite. Damian had never viewed Ave as someone who owed him. He had spent years believing he owed her. And somewhere between finding her again and finally telling her the truth, gratitude had become something deeper. Damian reached for her hand. Ave's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "What I should do without hiding anything from you." Then Damian lowered himself before her. The ballroom fell silent. Ave stared at him. For once, Damian Weston didn't look like the powerful man everyone else in the room knew. He looked only at her. "Ave Carter." Her breath caught. "You came into my life when I had nothing to offer you." Ave's eyes began to fill with emotion. "You helped me and walked away without asking for anything." Damian continued. "When I found you again, I handled it the wrong way." A small, emotional smile touched Ave's face. "You mean making me your maid?" "Domestic assistant." Ave almost laughed through her tears. Even now, he was correcting her. Damian's expression softened. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." Ave squeezed his hand. "But you eventually did." "Yes." He held her gaze. "And now I want to ask you something without debt, obligation, or repayment standing between us." That mattered to Ave. Their relationship had begun again under an arrangement she hadn't fully understood. This moment was different. Damian wasn't asking because she had once saved him. He wasn't asking because she had damaged his car. He was giving her a choice. "Ave, will you marry me?" For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Around them stood people who knew Damian as a wealthy and powerful man. But Avenue remembered something else. A cemetery, an injured stranger, a decision to stop and help. Neither of them could have known where that moment would eventually lead. Ave looked down at Damian. "Yes." The answer barely left her mouth before emotion broke across his face. "Yes." Ave smiled. "Yes, Damian." He rose and embraced her. Applause spread through the ballroom. But Avenue barely noticed anyone else. The night that had begun with Damian publicly separating his future from the influence of his past ended with him asking Ave to become part of that future. Not as his employee, not as someone repaying a debt, as his equal. 1 year later, Ave stood opposite Damian again. This time, there was no damaged Bugatti between them, no employment arrangement, no hidden history. They were getting married. The woman who once believed she had ruined her life by crashing into a $9 million car was now marrying the man who had been searching for her long before that accident happened. Damian looked at Ave as she approached him. There was no mystery left between them. She knew who he was. He knew exactly who she was. And both were there by choice. They exchanged their vows and became husband and wife. The strange journey that had brought them together had finally come full circle. It had begun 8 years earlier when Ave stopped at a cemetery and helped an injured stranger. Neither knew they would meet again. Neither could have predicted that their second encounter would begin with the sound of metal striking a $9 million Bugatti. Ave had thought that accident left her owing Damian Weston a debt she could never repay. But the car was never the heart of their story. The man she thought she owed had spent years believing the opposite. And by the time both debts were forgotten, something far more important had taken their place. A life they had chosen together.